How do you make API calls with the Fetch API in JavaScript? Imagine you want your website to talk to another server and get some data or send information. Making this happen smoothly is a key part of web development. Today, we're going to see how the Fetch API makes this process simple and efficient. The Fetch API is built into modern browsers and lets you perform network requests easily. To start, you call the fetch function and give it the URL of the API you want to connect with. This initiates a request to that server. The fetch function then returns a promise, which is like a promise to give you the response later. Once the server responds, the promise resolves to a response object. To get usable data from this response, you call methods like response.json. This method also returns a promise, which resolves to the data you want, usually in JSON format. If you want to handle errors, you can add a catch method at the end or use try-catch blocks if you're working with async and await syntax. For example, if you want to get data from an API, you write fetch with the URL, then chain a then to parse the JSON and another then to work with the data. It looks like this. fetchupha.example.com/data, then responsa is equal to response.json, is equal to console, lug data, catch arrow is equal to console, error. If you need to send data to an API, like creating a new user, you use a post request. You pass an options object as the second argument to fetch. This object includes the method, headers, and body. The body should be a strungupha.json object. For example, to send a name to an API, you write fetch upha.example.com/users method, post, headers, content type, application JSON, body, JSON stringify, name, Sammy. Is equal to response.json, is equal to console, lug success, result, catch arrow is equal to console, error. You can also create a request object if you want more control or plan to reuse requests. This lets you set up the request details once and pass it to fetch later. Remember, fetch is promise-based, which makes handling asynchronous code much easier than older methods. The response body is a stream, so you need to convert it to JSON, text, or blobs using response methods. The most common HTTP methods are get for retrieving data, post for sending new data, put for updating, and delete for removing data. Headers are important because they tell the server what kind of data you're sending or expecting. You can set headers using a headers object or plain JavaScript objects. Error handling is also key because fetch only rejects on network failures. If the server responds with an error like 404 or 500, fetch still considers it a successful request, so you need to check response OK or response status to handle those cases. Mastering how to make API calls with fetch is essential for building interactive web applications. It allows your website to communicate with servers, fetch data dynamically, and send user input seamlessly. Understanding how to handle JSON, set headers, choose the right HTTP methods, and manage errors will make your web projects more powerful and responsive.